Good morning, Magnetic Marketing members and Dan Kennedy aficionados. What a great day today is going to be. It's just over 2 years ago, I guess just under 2 years ago, Dan Kennedy got very ill, and we all thought we may have lost him forever. And certainly working together with Dan over the past couple of years, watching him through his recovery has been nothing short of amazing, actually. Dan, when I first started working with him, his eyesight was really bad. He really struggled to navigate from point A to point B, and he was really only able to type a little bit only by dictation. And over the past 2 years, he's made such an incredible recovery, and today is such a special day because we're launching his newest book, Why Advertising Fails and How to Make Yours Succeed. And for those of you who are joining us live on Facebook, if you haven't joined the event today, you can get a ticket at whyadvertisingfails.com right now. You'll have access all day long. We're going to have a great event. I'm going to give you the agenda here in a moment. But if you're only going to stay with us for a few moments this morning and you'd like to get your hands on Dan's newest book along with a very special offer, you can go to whyadvertisingfails.com/book. And before we get started, I'd also like to just share who I am. My name is Darren Spindler. I've been a member of this community for more than 15 years before joining forces and investing in the company 2 years ago. And then actually real recently, if you've been paying attention, you saw that we were merged together with the ClickFunnels family. And now I'm working together with Russell Brunson to continue the legacy of Dan Kennedy and bring his teachings to more entrepreneurs and business owners around the globe. So we're super excited to have you here today. A little bit about me, if you don't know me. I am referred to inside the community as the bowling guy. I'm the co-founder of kidsbowlfree.com, where we work with over 1,500 bowling alleys all over the world. And we've had more than 34 million kids participate in our program. And we've helped bowling centers take their summers from terrible to prosperous. And using all the strategies, the tools, and the techniques that Dan teaches inside of Why Advertising Fails. So Dan and I will talk a little bit about Kids Bowl Free today when he and I are chatting. But really, we have a lot of great guest speakers today. Our first speaker today is Travis Lee. Travis is a longtime member of the community. He's actually going to share at the end of his presentation how he first got introduced to the community through the most incredible free gift ever as a college gift from his father, who's been a member even longer than Travis, obviously. We're going to have Dr. Emily Latran. She's going to talk about how she's made her dental practice prosperous by keeping patients for more than 24 years. We have Robin Robbins from Technology Marketing Toolkit, and Robin's built her company from zero to more than, I believe, at this point, $20 million. And Robin, I think, is going to be really great for many of you because Robin addresses one of the issues that many of our members struggle with, business-to-business marketing. So Robin specializes in IT businesses, but she also helps those IT businesses attract businesses to their businesses. So she's really doing two types of marketing inside of her information business. So I think she's going to have a really incredible presentation for you today. Also, Marty Fort. Marty, if you don't know Marty runs, I believe, 3 music schools in Columbia, South Carolina. But he also coaches hundreds of music schools around the globe. And he has created some really cool intellectual property. And Dan has really been his mentor for more than a decade. And Marty is going to have an incredible presentation for you today as well. We're going to have 2 great presentations from Dan Kennedy. We're going to spend more than 3 hours with Dan this afternoon. And then we're going to close the day with a very special guest who is now what he wants to be referred to as Dan Kennedy's biggest cheerleader. So Russell Brunson, the co-founder of ClickFunnels. ClickFunnels, for many of you, has more than 100,000 users. They're now doing more than $100 million. And ClickFunnels, as many of you know, was built really off the direct response principles that Dan Kennedy teaches in this book. And Russell's going to be here with an hour-long presentation to close the day. And if you know anything about Russell, in that 1 hour, we're going to get 3 hours of content. So Russell will be streaming to us live from Boise, and Russell is going to have a great presentation to end the day. So we're going to have a great day together. It's going to be really, truly wonderful. And before I bring Travis up, I just want to talk a little bit about, first off, we have some sponsors today. Travis and his 3D mailing company, and also part of Shaw, and his e-launchers company. Part of will be up a little bit today, and he'll share with you how he helps his clients make sure their advertising does not fail. Also today, if you are an action taker, I have a special gift. Well, I guess it's a prize. If you go to whyadvertisingfails.com/book and you order the book today, which actually is free, you just pay the shipping and handling, $9.95. I am going to give away today this envelope. Inside this envelope, I refer to this as Dan Kennedy's Dropbox. So this is an envelope he handed to me, and actually it had a little Ziploc baggie that accompanied it, because I think he was planning on mailing this to me or FedExing it. And to make sure that it didn't get wet, it was in a Ziploc bag. So if you know much about Dan, he's into the details and backup plans to backup plans. But this is actually Dan Kennedy's personal thumb drive, which he sent me this book. And you'll see what it looked like before it went into its book form, and then what it looked like after. So one lucky book buyer today will get that. Also today, if you get a copy of the book, you're going to get 6 interviews from Dan Kennedy. They're the Inside the Millionaire Maker interview series. And if you go to whyadvertisingfails.com, you'll see all the details about the interviews. But for instance, the first one is how to dramatically increase profits from direct mail. In addition to the interviews, you're going to get these transcripts as well. This one is selling beyond price resistance and creating exceptional profits. You're going to get increasing response to all advertising. So this is a great interview. Strategies for iron cage customer retention and increasing total customer value and referrals. And you'll get business to business, getting past gatekeepers and gaining the favorable attention of decision makers. So you'll get that. And the last one is factors that control closing percentages in face-to-face selling or response percentages in distance selling, which you can use obviously today on Zoom. So with that, what I'd like to do is I'm going to bring up our first presenter and guest speaker today, Travis Lee. Travis has been a longtime member of our community. Travis is the president,
founder, CEO all things
of
3D
Mail. And for those of you who don't know what 3D Mail is, it's the lumpy mail that sticks out that actually gets results.
You got it.
So with that, Travis, the floor is all yours, and I'll be back in just 40 minutes or so.
Perfect. Well, awesome. Thank you, Darren, for inviting me up here. I think I might be the first official speaker of the Magnetic Marketing ClickFunnels marriage. So if I'm not, I'm gonna claim it and I'll wear it with pride. So today we're going to talk about the simple 3-step process that ensures direct mail success. I'm going to jump right into it. I'll kind of get into my background a little bit. Darren pretty much covered it. But we're going to go relatively quickly. I only got about 45 minutes to be with you this morning, so we're going to get rolling. So the first thing you've got to realize is that all marketing, I don't care if you're direct mail, I don't care if you're online, offline, I don't care what it is, all marketing comes down to the triangle of marketing success or failure factors. I'm going to speak particularly about direct mail when it comes to this morning. However, this is transferable to any type of marketing you choose. So, again, direct mail focused, but if you don't do direct mail, I would encourage you to look at it. But if that's not for you, any media you use can be used for this triangle. So the first thing is you need the right list. You need the right audience in order to have success. You need the right offer. So what are you going to dangle in front of your folks to get them to react, to get them to act? And then finally, you need the right media. So in my case, it's direct mail, but again, that can be any media you choose. And that's how you get the right results. Now, this may seem very basic in the direct response marketing space, in that it's very fundamental, but it's also very advanced in the sense that so many people forget about this. They forget about the marketing triangle. They forget that those are the only 3 factors that determine the success of your direct mail. So, as we go through this, I want you to think about building your direct mail campaigns as building a house. So you've got to start with the great foundation in order to have any success at all. If you don't have a great foundation, it's going to be a failure. Then you've got to put up the walls. You've got to put up the framing. You've got to then put a roof on it, and only then can you then start to put stuff on the inside and put the final touches on it. So that's how I want you to think about this as we move through this and we look at that marketing triangle from a direct mail perspective. So, if something's not working in your marketing, it's because at least one of those three factors, list, offer, media, is incompatible with the others. If they don't all jive, you're going to have a tough time. Every success is the result of getting all three right. So you've got to factor those three things. And every failure comes from the misfire in one or more of those three areas. That's what we're balancing here. So, who am I? Darren gave me a brief introduction. As he said, I'm the co-founder and president of 3D Mail Results, and we help businesses increase their return on investment with creative, unique, and clutter-busting 3D mail products. I also do some coaching, I do some consulting, I do copywriting, and we've actually helped over 10,000 businesses increase the response of their direct mail. I've also written a couple books, co-authored a book with Dan Kennedy, about 12 years ago now, called Stand Apart. I also have my own book called The Simple 3-Step Process to Direct Mail Success. I'm going to tell you how you can get a free copy of that at the very end. I've also been around this Kennedy world, as Darren said, my entire business life. I've been at super conferences, at info summits. I think I've spoken at 5 or 6 different events now. I've had the pleasure of meeting Penn Jillette, Emmett Smith, all the folks that come through the GKIC world. And we're really passionate about helping direct mail marketers increase the response of their mail, increase their return on investment. That's what we're looking to do. And then, of course, I've got my family, the obligatory family picture that every speaker has to put up there. That's my wife, Jen, my 2 kids, Carson and Whitney. That's us on Crystal Mountain snow skiing last winter in the shadow of Mount Rainier. We skied about 30 days last year, so we love getting up in the mountains. We love doing that. And in fact, as soon as I'm done with you here, I'm getting on a plane so I can get back home to see them. So, when it comes to direct mail, it all starts with the mailing list. That's where all this starts from. That is the foundation of the home that we spoke about. So, maximizing direct mail success. This is from Bob Stone, who actually literally wrote the book, Successful Direct Marketing Methods. He says, maximizing direct mail success depends first upon the list you use, second upon the offers that you make, and then third upon the copy and the creative you create. And then here's what Dan had to say about it. Dan says, there's not a single freelance copywriter at my compensation level and in as much demand. Other copywriters wouldn't readily admit this, but that our work is the least significant of the three, being the copy. The least significant of the 3 ingredients of a direct mail results. I have never made a secret of this and routinely urge my clients to do a better job with the first 2. So, what is Dan saying here? Everybody wants great copy. That's what we all want. But the fact of the matter is, this is only third on our list of the most important things that we're going to talk about. So again, I said, if we're going to start with the list, that's the laying of the foundation. If you don't have the proper list, if you don't have the right people, if you don't have the right message going to the right people, all the other things that come after that don't matter. So we've got to lay down that great foundation, because if we don't lay down that great foundation, we're going to end up with a house that looks like this. And within a couple years, within a couple weeks, within a couple months, you're going to start seeing cracks, and the foundation's not going to work, and your roof is going to be sliding off, and your frame's not going to be looking good. And so that's what you don't want. So we're going to spend a lot of our time here today talking about what kind of lists are available. Because as Dan says, most people spend way too little time looking at the lists and knowing what's available. So we're going to dive very, very deep. And in fact, I'll go as far as to say that when it comes to direct mail, and really, again, any kind of marketing, your list, your audience, is going to make up about 50% of that battle. So if we've got a list, that's the 50% of the battle. We've got our offer, that's about 20%. And then we've got our the copy or the creative that we actually use, the process that Dan talked about in the last slide. That makes up about 20%. That gets you about 90% of the way there. So the list is by far the most important. That last little 10%, those are things outside of our control, outside forces that may or may not lead us to success. So I'll give you an example. If you mailed a direct mail piece, let's say you were a restaurant, and you said, I'm going to send a direct mail piece out in late February of 2020 or early March of 2020. Do you think you'd have much success with that direct mail campaign? Probably not, because restaurants across the country and across the world were completely shut down for the most part in the middle of March of 2020. So those are the last little bit that we can't control. Let's say you're in the upper Midwest and you get that freak snowstorm in May where they get 18 inches of snow unannounced, and you sent out a direct mail piece the night before. That is the last 10% we don't have a ton of control over. We can try to time it, but that's that last 10%. So 50% list, about 20% offer, about 20% copy, and then that last 10% are those outside forces. So let's talk about lists. Whether you sell B2B or B2C, there are two kinds of lists. They are your in-house list, so obviously your list of customers, clients, patients, whatever you got, and then there's a rented or purchase list. So we're going to talk about the offers you can make and the creative process as you write your letters. But that process is 100% dictated on the lists that you choose. Without the right list, none of that other stuff matters. Again, it's 50% of the battle. So with your in-house list, you can basically break down your in-house list into 3 different subcategories. The first are your active buyers. These are the people that are always buying from you, the people that are on your email list that buy things, your people that you call up and buy things. Your active, engaged buyers. Then you have your unconverted leads, or your not yet buyers. That's the third category. Those are the people that raised their hand and said, I'm interested but haven't bought yet. They're the business cards that you collected at a networking group or a B&I group. All those, if you do lead generation marketing, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, if you do lead generation marketing, those are those folks who are unconverted on your list. And then, of course, you have your inactive customers. So those are the people that purchased from you at one point and now are no longer buying from you. In some industries, that's really easy to figure out. So if you're a dentist and you're supposed to come in every 6 months and month 7 hits, well, they're now a lost or inactive patient in this case, but we call them inactive customers. Now, this is the bare minimum that you should be doing for your in-house list in terms of segmenting. You could further go down, say, with your active buyers, and they could be sliced and diced by the products or service types that they bought. They bought peanut butter, but they didn't buy jelly in its simplest form. The types of purchases, the frequency, the transaction size. Sometimes a one-size-fits-all message can work for these 3 different kinds of lists, but for the most part, this is kind of how you got to think about it. You got to think about these 3 hierarchies inside of your list. Now, this is called the Why Advertising Fails presentation. So, what's the number one reason advertising fails to this in-house list? Is you simply don't make enough offers to your in-house list. All those folks. The number one thing I see is people wanting to go out and get new customers all the time while completely forgetting about their current active, inactive, unconverted leads. This pot of gold you have sitting here. So the number one thing I can tell you to take away from this part of the presentation is make more offers and make them more often. Never underestimate the ability of your customers to spend money with you. If you don't give them an opportunity to buy, they will go somewhere else to buy. So, big number one fail, not making enough offers to these folks. All right, so that's in-house list. You guys probably got a decent idea of what that can do for you. Let's move to what we call purchased or rented lists. And there's 2 types of these. We have a response-based list, and we have compiled lists. So what are the differences between those 2 things? So first off, a response-based list is a list of responders and buyers from a specific business or campaign or category. So for example, Harry and David, Omaha Steaks, Land's End, the Wounded Warrior Project, the World Wildlife Fund, Bloomberg Business Week for those of us in the B2B space. They all make their lists available to purchase. Now, a subcategory of those response-based lists are what we call an inquiry-based list. So those other lists, so let's use Wounded Warrior Project as an example. You could get their list of you could get their donor list. So if that was a demographic you wanted to go after, you could go and rent their donor list. An inquiry-based list is a little bit different. Those are people who didn't buy something, but inquired about something. So if you ever see direct response television ads, Sunset awning is a great example. If you watch any of the business morning news, sunset awning is awnings are out there all the time running direct response ads. Call up now, get your free information kit. Well, if I just called up and got information but didn't buy it, I'm now on their inquiry list. So those are kind of the two subcategories that we have for purchased or rented lists. Now, I know that's hard to see. We'll zoom in on it in just a second. But that's a list of the 50 top mailers in the country. And so let's zoom in. And now let's take a look. So you'll notice there that I zoomed in at first one was number 13, AT&T. Then you got Oriental Trading, ASPCA. And you'll notice, you'll see the name of the company, you'll see the category that they're in, and then if I go back real quick, that third column says list owner. Well now, if they have a list owner where you can go buy the list, that tells you that their response-based list, their buyer list or their inquiry list is available to rent. So that's pretty cool. So let's go down the list there. Oriental Trading Company, they sell party favors. They rent their list. Let's move down a little bit farther. Land's End Apparel Company, they rent their list. Move down a little farther. World Wildlife Fund, they rent their list. Down a little farther, Pottery Barn, they rent their list. If you've ever registered for a wedding at Pottery Barn, your name gets sold. So that's the little dirty secret about direct mail. These companies that make their lists available is that's where they make a whole lot of money with kind of without you knowing it, without you having to really buy anything direct from them. So the next one we have are what's called a compiled list. A compiled list is what most people think of when they're buying a list. So I want women between the ages of 35 and 55, married with kids in the home, making over $100K a year. That's what most people think of when they think of buying a list, a compiled list. Now, they're called compiled lists because the information is literally compiled by the credit score folks. So Excelsior, Axiom, Experian, those types of businesses, while they learned years ago, while the credit score stuff was important and they could sell it, well, what else they know about you was also valuable as well. So for these types of companies, they make a profile of every person in America. So all 330 million Americans, give or take, have a profile with these companies. Now, we do the same thing in the B2B space, right? So that's where I live. I've only ever owned and worked in a business that sells B2B. So we have those types of lists as well. The two big players in that area are Dun & Bradstreet and Data Axle. But the same idea. They build profiles of businesses based on public data. When they call up and they start asking your receptionist a whole bunch of questions, that's how they're gathering their data. So what are the differences between the two types of lists? We've got compiled and we've got response-based lists. So a compiled list is a group of data pulled together, but we don't know if they're responders. But we do know a whole lot about them demographically. On the flip side, the response-based, we know they're responders. We can know what things they've bought and things they've inquired about, but by and large, sometimes we don't know the demographic data. So that's kind of the yin and the yang of this thing. So the who of marketing is not giving nearly enough time. First off, you got to think about geographic. Are you local? Are you hyper-local? Are you local? Are you national? Are you international? Then you get to demographic, age, gender, income, marital status, home value, children, ethnicity. Most people get to these first two. If you're in B2B, we have industry demographic. So sales size, employee size, what we call SIC code and NAICS code. That's how we categorize businesses, job title. I know Robin's probably going to get into a lot more of this when she talks about it. Then we've got this thing called psychographics. Their activities, their interests, their opinions. What are the things kind of in the mind of the prospect? And this now is where we can kind of start to blend a response-based list with a compiled-based list is by using these psychographics. And I'll give you a couple examples of those. And I've got to get moving here. Number 5 is affinity, their groups, their associations, there's organizations, alumni groups, members of groups, things like that. So within the B2C group, you have to get the right prospect. So here's some examples of compiled and response-based lists. So number two, I guess, there is ailments, illnesses, and medical conditions. We can actually get a list of people who have those things. So if you're a chiropractor and you deal with back, neck, and knee pain, we can get that list. We also have new homeowners. So that's a compiled list. When you go out and buy a house, that's a matter of public record. We can now target new homeowners. Here's one where we can kind of blend those psychographics. So we can get a compiled list with the demographic data and then lay over the top, say, for example, a preferred political party affiliation. Now, that's just one of the things that we can do. We've got about 4,000 of these little psychographic layers we can put on in all different kinds of industries. We could spend a whole day talking just about those. We can get lists of consumers with allergies. So if you wanted to sell in-home air filters, good place to go. We could get doctor home addresses who are heavy investors. So now we can get, again, this is kind of blending those two kinds of lists together. We could get early technology adopters. We could get denture and adhesive and fixatives. So if you're a dentist, that'd be a great list to get. Here's one I pulled out in that group of those psychographics. I pulled out because we're here in October. You can even find people who find Halloween inspiration on Pinterest. So I don't know how you would use that quite yet, but I pulled it up just to show you how deep some of these things can go. Then in the B2B space, we got industry demographic, we got home address types we got home addresses for a myriad of business types. Here's another one of those psychographic things. We can get Federal Express, people who use Federal Express for business. We've got Entrepreneur Magazine subscribers. We can get that. We can get CIO Magazine subscribers. And then within that, we can know their employee size, their sales volume, their industry type, etc. And then, of course, there's host-parasite relationships with groups and associations. So you can go, be perfectly transparent. Here's an example of it right here, right now, as you're looking at me. I own a business. I work with Darren in the Magnetic Marketing Group. So we have a relationship where we can now, pull from that list. All right. So we've got a good foundation built with a good understanding of what lists work, and we can use it. But it's time to put up the frame, it's time to put up the walls, and it's time to start building our offers around our audience. So that number two step, so we've got list, now we've got our offer. And as Dan likes to say, plain vanilla or ordinary, uninteresting or incomplete offers or propositions are out of sync with today's consumer. And that is really true. As you get into business and as you grow and make more offers, you find, I've really got to turn up the heat, right? So I love to keep this picture in the back of my mind. When I'm writing an offer, I picture that it's Sunday in December, and my ideal prospect's favorite team is playing, and there is a foot of fresh snow on the ground, and he gets my direct mail piece that day. And now I've got to do whatever I can to get that big oaf off the couch into my store or onto my website or wherever that call to action is. So this is what I have in my mind as I'm putting together my offers. Whatever I can do to get that guy off the couch, that's what I've got to do. And it really boils down to them saying, I'd be a fool if I said no to this. So you've really got to create that offer. So people are chiefly motivated by themselves. They're always in tune to their favorite radio station, WIIFM, what's in it for me. They're also interested in how your offer benefits them. This is a big problem I see people make. They have their features of their product or their service, but they don't relate it to a benefit. So you've got to make that connection. What are the features of your product or service, and then what are the benefits for that end user? The importance of those benefits, and then here's a big one, especially as you move up the affluent chain, if you will, and that's not being ripped off. So many people say, I'm not going to do X because when I did X, Y happened. So you've got to overcome those things. So real briefly, what are we talking about when we do offers? It really comes down to, are we going to do one-step marketing, or are we going to do lead generation marketing? So one-step marketing, the only job of the ad is to sell your product or service, and it elicits an immediate buy now reaction. whether that's come in and make a purchase, whether that's come in for an appointment, whether that's pick up the phone and place an order. That only works if they want it now, right? So I'm going to talk about some ways where one-step marketing may be a great place versus lead generation marketing. So you must be there at the exact right moment, but there's no way to continually stay in front of your prospect. And in most cases, the time or length of your message can be limited. Think TV and radio ads. Even in direct mail, we can only fit so much into an envelope. Almost all institutional marketing falls into the one-step category. Have you ever noticed that it's always truck month? It's always the best time to buy a truck? Well, that's what they're doing. They don't have any clue that there's lead generation marketing, so they just do that. Lead generation marketing, on the other hand, grabs the attention of your prospect from those who are mildly interested to those who are ready to buy now. And they raise their hand. They give us permission to sell. That's an important difference between these two things. When they raise their hand and say, I'm interested, they give us permission to sell. As Dan likes to say, I go from annoying pest to welcome guest at that point. And then here's a big one. You can put them in your follow-up marketing funnel and campaigns. So it allows you to build the relationship. So, for the most part, I'm a lead generation guy. You need to think of yourself as in the list building business. Nothing is more valuable to you and your business than your targeted prospect and customer list. And as one of my friends like to say, you keep marketing to them until they buy, die, or unsubscribe. So you want to capture those names and market to them continuously. And here's what's great about it. You can move them to other media. So if you collected them online, you can move them to offline. If you collected them offline, you can move them online. If you collect them on a webinar, you can now send them a direct mail piece. If you send them a direct mail piece, you can now put them onto a webinar. That's how symbiotic these things can work. And here's the big one. As Dan likes to say, he who can spend the most money on a prospect wins. And when you've narrowed your universe to all the possible customers you could have, only to those now that are interested, you have the ability to spend more money and spend more money and convert more of them into customers. So instead of advertising for your product, you can spend your dollars to find the best prospect who is worthy of further investment in the relationship. So let's give a very basic example of this. Let's say I own a high-end restaurant out on Bainbridge Island, which is out near me in the Seattle area. And so we've got the Bainbridge Resort. Visit our gourmet restaurant, which features world-class wine cellar, expert sommelier, and intimate private dining with views. So if we were to take that rough, crude postcard and mail it out, that's an example of advertising for a product. Let's flip that, and let's give an example of advertising for the prospect that we want. So, are you a sophisticated wine aficionado? We have a select few VIP invitations for exceptional events here in the Bainbridge area. For free information and to register for a free complimentary bottle of wine, visit website, call the phone number. Now we're advertising for the person we want and not our product. So what does that do to us? It allows us, for example, we could use pearls to send it. So we could say bainbridgevip.com/Travis. We could personalize each card. We could change the copy to, if I'm right about you being a sophisticated wine aficionado, because guess what? We can get lists of wine aficionados in and around our area that we service. We could even go outside of our area if we chose to get people coming into our restaurant. And now we have interested prospect to invest in getting him to my restaurant for the first time. So, how does that look in real life? Here's an example from Dr. Dustin Burleson, longtime member of Planet Dan. And he's an orthodontist. Does your child really need braces? Free parent resource guide from Dr. Burleson. This is an example of advertising for the prospect, not the product. Almost every orthodontist is going to say, hey parent, come in for your braces. This, in Dr. Burleson case, he's growing his list using lead generation marketing, advertising for the prospect, not the product. So here's a picture of that. All right. Running out of time here, so I got to get moving a little bit. So we've got the foundation. We've built the foundation with our list. We've put the frame and the walls up with our offer. Now it's time to put the roof on the top and add the finishing touches to the inside by selecting the right media and the right creative. So again, I'm going to focus mostly on direct mail here, but this goes for any type of media, online, offline, I don't care what you're doing. So what is the media? The media is the means we use to deliver our message to the chosen market. So 3 big principles when it comes to media. Media is where most people start. So you get a flyer, you get a direct mail piece from Google AdWords saying, here's $100 to open your Google Ads account. So you go and you open a Google Ad account without thinking, is that where my people are? It may be, it might not be. Most people start there. You'll notice we've put this last because that should be considered last. Number 2, there's no such thing as good or bad media. Some media is more appropriate than others for your purpose. So if you need a hammer, a screwdriver is not going to do the job. A great example I like to give when I go out speaking about this is if I'm selling adjustable beds to people over 75, the Yellow Pages may still be a wonderful place to be advertising. I don't know, but it may be. If I'm selling all-inclusive spring break travel packages to college students, I do not want to be in the Yellow Pages, and I probably want to be on Instagram and TikTok and all those other places. So there's no such thing as a good or bad media. And then principle number 3, never assume readership or attention. That's a big one to take away. You must do everything in your power to grab them by the throat and force their attention. So why is this so important? So if we had an audience here, I'd say, how many marketing messages does the average American see in one day? Well, the answer is 3,800. And so if you think about that, going back to our last slide about demanding attention, if we see 3,800 marketing messages a day, that equals to about a little under 1.4 million messages a year that we see. And I love that picture of Times Square because it really shows you all the things that we have to filter out as people. If you were to walk down that street and try to absorb everything, it would take you a lifetime to walk down Times Square. So getting seen, heard, or read is the #1 hurdle for any kind of marketing. And then how do you stand out to be that one in 1.387 million that they're going to remember this year? So a couple examples. So the first one I'm going to show here is a new mover campaign. This is a campaign that we use for a whole myriad of different businesses. This one happens to be for a dental practice. And so we can send out direct mail messages to new movers because we know that roughly 60 to 65% of new movers are going to choose a new dentist. So if we can show up at the right time with the right message, we've got a chance. So we used our list first, created the offer, and now we've got our creative here. So in this case, we've got to be different than anything else they're getting that day or that week. So in this case, we use a big number 10 envelope, we stick a big billboard headline on the outside, and we send our letter inside. Here's another example. So we know, again, that roughly 50% of people, when they move, are going to change auto mechanics. And if they're moving from outside the area, it's even higher than that. So here's another example. We use a number 10 envelope, big billboard on the outside, enjoy a free oil change on us. We create that offer, and then on the inside. So those are, we talked about lead generation versus one-step marketing. These are one-step marketing pieces. It's not a very complicated sale. People know what a dentist does. People know what an auto repair shop does. It's not a complicated sale, so we can usually go ahead and do that, use that one-step marketing. Here's an example for a client of mine who coaches other business. He actually coaches attorneys. And so we use this cool number 10 envelope. We use this cool handwritten font. As someone in the print industry, it's as close as you can get without actually having someone holding a pen and writing. And of course, we use a live stamp, just like Dan teaches. Well, in this case, he's selling to attorneys, and he does have a relatively high-priced, relatively complicated sale. So we now make a lead generation offer. We've got our list of attorneys, we've got our offer that we're going to do, now we've got our creative that we're going to send. So very, very cool piece, worked exceedingly well for him. It's made to look kind of like an advertorial. He's got his picture there. It's printed glossy on a magazine. Blurred some of that out. He didn't want me giving away all of his secrets, but that's what it looks like. So that's an example, 2 examples of a consumer, 1 example of a B2B. Here's another B2B example. Now this is where marketing can get a lot of fun. And so I call this B2B marketing big game hunting. So this is Tim Mitchum. He owns Wexford and James in West Des Moines, Iowa. And he's in the receivables management system, which for those of you that don't know, he's a bill collector, right? So that's what he does. And so here's what he did. He targeted just 30 cosmetology schools. He's out of Iowa, in Iowa and 3 surrounding states. Not sure why he chose cosmetology schools. My guess is they have a pretty high default rate. So why not go to those people that need our services most, going all the way back to list. He had a 3,300% return on investment on a $300 investment. Now you might be saying to yourself, Travis, that's $10 per mailing piece. I can't afford that. Well, if you do the math properly and you target properly, you sure can spend $10 per piece to go get new customers. Then, of course, you can expect that to be ever increasing. That was just in the first few months. Lifetime return plus any referrals from these new clients. And I love this piece. He actually sent out a little squishy foot. And so he said, is it time for Wexford and James to get their foot in the door? Really fun piece. Just to follow up here a little bit, your lead generation advertising is only as good as your follow-up. So what happens once they raise their hand? So real quick here, I've got a client who is a immigration attorney. Well, it's really hard to go get compiled a response-based list of illegal immigrants if you're going to be an immigration attorney. So he's got to create his own list. So everything starts with getting his book. And then what happens? He gets the book, and now we can start dripping on these folks. So he sends out letter number 1 with a little magnifying glass inside. He sends out letter number 2 inside of a little pill bottle. He sends out letter number 3 inside one of our fake express envelope pieces. And now he's able to follow up. Here's another example. This is now a B2B example. So you'll notice there's not a lot of difference between these two. B2B, B2C, there's some slight differences, but not much. So this is another client of ours who does all things internet. Website building, PPC, SEO, all that kind of stuff. Matt Beatron's his name, and he calls Build Your Brand Media. Starts with a book. And again, he sends out, first thing he sends out is a letter within a bank bag. Then he sends out a letter in those express envelopes. Then he sends out one of those letters in a trash can. So, as you can see, there's not a lot of difference between the B2B and the B2C world. We could almost take those 3 letters, move them around, and move them from the B2C world or the B2B world. And that's what you've got to do. Like I said, your lead generation marketing is only as good as the follow-up that you can put into place. So with that, I don't know, Darren, if you want to come up here. We can help implement much of your front-end and back-end direct mail. So as Darren's coming up here, if you want to get in touch with us, you can go to get my free book. I've got 2 of them for you. It's book.3dmailresults.com. You can go there, get your free copy. Maybe they'll put one in the chat as we do this as a live stream, but you'll get both my books. The simple 3-step process to direct mail success is the big one that you're going to want. That goes into big depth on what I just talked about here. I only had about 45 minutes to get with you today, but you'll get that book. Then you'll also get a 6-hour training, companion training to go along with that book. That literally, it's the 3 steps: list, offer, media. And that's what I got for you. Book.3dmailresults.com. And I know Darren's got a book he wants to sell too.
I want to share with them.
Share with you, yes.
Yes, we definitely want to get it in their hands.
There
right?
you go, there you go.
So Travis, thank you. This is a great presentation. I mean, certainly one of the things that we know is using multi-step, multimedia is one way, right? Not every way, that you can make your advertising not fail.
Yep.
So why don't we talk a little bit about why somebody might want to grab a copy of the book today, and more importantly, why should they grab a copy or join the most incredible free gift ever? You were gifted it when you were in college.
I was gifted the gift. So I didn't get into much of it today, but my father and I started 3D Mail Results back in 2008, which wasn't a great time to be starting a business, but because of what we knew from Dan, we were able to make it work back then. But I went to college. I was actually a marketing and entrepreneurship member back at Washington State University. And I was talking with my dad. He owned another business at the time. Talking with him, he said, you know, I'm sure that college degree that I paid for is great. However, if you're thinking about coming to work at the business, I'm going to send you some Dan Kennedy stuff. And I had heard Dan. I mean, I earned money, you know, folding letters, sticking them into envelopes, sealing them. We didn't have the peel and seal things back then. We had to we used this. Well, we didn't lick. We used sponges to use them. But so I'd make 15 cents every envelope I'd stuff, and that's how I got movie money for the weekend on a lot of times. So he sent me this Dan Kennedy stuff and said, I know that, like I said, that college degree may be great. Here's the marketing that I know works for our business. And it was actually a silver membership at the time. So I don't even think they have silver membership anymore. I'm diamond now, so I don't even know what's at the bottom end. And he said, read it if you like it. If you like it and you think this is something you want to do, then we should have a discussion if you want to come talk about working in the family business. So thankfully, I've never known a business without knowing direct response marketing. So I didn't have to reprogram myself. Yep. And so if you're looking to get that edge, if you're looking to get really deep into what Dan thinks and his thoughts and beyond just what you can get with the book, it's probably the most valuable, not probably, it's the most valuable asset we have is our connection to Dan and what we've learned from Dan through newsletters and books and courses and everything else.
Well, you, like I wouldn't run any business without direct response advertising.
Yep.
One of my investments is a restaurant, right? And I heard you mention restaurants during the pandemic and the shutdown, right? What happened to the majority? The majority were shut down with no idea what to do because they were dependent upon cars or people coming to them.
No lists.
No lists.
No outreach.
Well,
no nothing.
In our case, right, we've got a list of 25,000 people who've given us their email address and their birthday, along with their kid's birthday, along with now 7,000 or 8,000 users of our app, which we've got full contact information along with last purchase and push notifications and all that. I can't imagine investing or owning anything without the ability to quickly communicate. All of that's been learned because what I've learned from Dan, what I've learned from people like Travis inside of this community, things that I've learned from others inside the community like Robin and Pardiff and Gene and everybody else who will be speaking today, because inside the community, people are very willing to share, right? The community is very sharing. And it's important that you've got a network of people around you who think like you, who want to be successful, who are a part of the 1% and are proud of it, not like, oh man, like those evil 1%ers, right?
You've really got to rewire your brain when it comes to that, right? I mean, Dan talks about not caring about outside forces, outside people, outside opinions, and that's, there's a lot of that in the newsletter as well. It's more than just marketing.
Right.
It's how to reprogram that brain to think like an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So inside the community, certainly some of the things that you do get, Travis mentioned the newsletter, right? The No BS Marketing newsletter, you get that every single month. Also, the Magnetic Marketing Live interviews, which are great interviews with people like Travis and others in our community who are doing something really, truly awesome right now. So if you get a copy of the book today, the book is free. You pay shipping and handling $9.95. If you'd like to try the community, it's $19.97. For the next 60 days, we'll send you the newsletter. You'll get access to everything else as a gold member. And plus, today, you'll be entered to win the thumb drive with the original copy of Why Advertising Fails. You're going to get the 6 transcripts, the 6 interviews, plus you're going to get a lot of other goodies. So go to whyadvertisingfails.com/book. Travis, again, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. And we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with you in just a few minutes with Robin Robbins.